No.
In this laptop, I possess fabulous information. We're up to 87% reporting.
Yes, you do.
And it's been called. Andrew.
Yes!
Check mark.
Andrew Gillum for the win! Okay, to review for everyone, as we do this coverage live on election nights, as we always do, Andrew Gillum, deeply progressive, backed by almost all the progressive groups. Our Revolution and on down. John will get you the whole list in a second. Gwen Graham, backed by the establishment, almost everyone in the Democratic establishment backing Gwen Graham. Andrew Gillum, young African-American, already in state politics, already had a great list of accomplishments. I interviewed him on Rebel headquarters. You should check that interview out on youtube.com/rebelhq. And he is dynamic, and he ran a super strong race. And when I see great candidates like that, I think, like, do I know anything about politics? Because if I do, I feel like he's got a good chance of winning, even though, of course, the establishment candidate has way more money, endorsements, the machine has all that. Now, of course, sometimes it doesn't happen. Tonight, Pam Keith, she's a wonderful Just Democrat, super dynamic as well. I thought she had a great chance just based on the kind of campaign she was running. It didn't happen for her. And look, there's the Brent Welders and the Greg Edwards that lose, even though they run a great campaign. But Andrew Gillum, all the progressives in the country were excited by him, and it turns out we were right. We were right to be excited. It's one of the biggest wins, I would say, of the whole primary season.
I'm going to do what I bemoan everyone else doing, but I'm going to say the disclaimer part first.
Okay.
I love a disclaimer. Look, he got 33% of the vote, 34% of the vote. With Philip Levine got 20, the others got 14.4%. So those who want to mitigate his impact will use those numbers, and they won't be wrong. We don't know what would happen if Philip Levine hadn't run. But it's a primary, and frequently there are many people involved in the primary.
I often find that to be a super uninteresting point, because you get the races you have, not the ones you wish you had.
That's right. So yeah, right? He won the race he had.
You got to win, right? So as Rumsfeld would say, right? Sometimes there is a spoiler candidate that takes just enough votes, and then that conversation becomes a little bit more interesting. But in a three-way race, okay, yeah, you got to win a three-way race.
Right.
So what?
And we don't have any way of knowing that if it had just been a two-way race, maybe he would have beat her by 6, 7 points. We have no way of knowing. But
either way, enormously irrelevant.
Right. But all I mean is, if you're looking for what I'm now going to say, like a sign of changes in the Democratic Party, it's hard to say it's a sign because he only has 33 or 34% of the vote. That said, like Gwen Graham, the thing that I am embarrassed that I didn't know, that she's Bob Graham's daughter. I mean, so this is the establishment candidate, the daughter of a popular former governor and senator and presidential candidate, and a very establishment Democrat, and in some of the good ways for Bob Graham. Like he was, she met him, he's a reasonable, smart guy. And look, they just beat his daughter, right? Like, I mean, and Hillary Clinton lost twice. Like, that sort of idea that the princes and princesses of the establishment, of named, powered leaders in the Democratic Party, has taken it on the chin.
Yeah. So
it's that, of course, that all by itself is comforting to see.
Hopefully, that'll also happen to Duncan Hunter Jr. in the 50th district in California. Yeah. So I really dislike the idea of royalty in this country. So if anything, I have a bias against family members running. Really, two people in the same family both happen to be like the perfect person for those particular races in a country of 330 million people, or perhaps the name recognition is helping them, and hence the title of royalty.
We had a revolution in this country, so as not to have royalty and to establish a deep state. Those two reasons. And I think that, and this was this again. So there's value in eliminating part one.
Yeah, and look, it matters to the American dream. Andrew Gillum grew up with not a lot of money in Miami, and he worked so hard, got himself into a good school, and worked his way up. And that's the American dream. And the fact that it's alive is not a small thing. And even a lot of people on the left are worried that it's not alive. And I'm an optimistic person, and you see somebody like Andrew who absolutely positively did ironically what the Republicans talk about, pulling himself up by the bootstraps, as they will run against them viciously pretty soon, right? It's just great to see, and it's not just against the world-hit senator. To me, the most important lesson out of this race, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez race, Cara Eastman race, and the list goes on. All the 24 just Democrats have won so far. Gillum wasn't; he was backed by all the other groups. That's real unity. I love it. I don't care that he is or is not any particular label. He's a fantastic progressive. That's what I care about. But to me, even the bigger lesson is the machine is not as invincible as they would have you believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. They're not.
And they told you, hey, don't even bother running. Don't bother. You're not. The guy's not taking corporate PAC money. You're never going to win. Right?
Look, the machine scared people into not running. Scared establishment people into not running against Hillary Clinton. I mean, Joe Biden. I don't need to read one story. I mean, I know Joe Biden had personal issues for not running, and those were very real issues. But Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and every other Democrat who decided not to run, they didn't run because they were like, I'm going to get crushed. I mean, I'm going to get crushed with money. I'm going to get crushed with ads. My spirit is going to get crushed, and we should not ignore that part, right? And people who are my friends are going to turn on me, and I'm going to lose, right? And Bernie Sanders has had a whole life where he was like, I don't care, I don't have that many friends, or whatever. But I mean, it's
certainly not in Washington.
But I mean, right? but also that means the kind of friends they're not going to turn on me,
of
right?
course.
Right. So,
and that's where Bernie being obstinate.
That's right.
Was incredibly helpful.
That's right.
And one of the things that I think has held back some of the types of candidates that we have running and winning in primaries across the country now is that you don't necessarily have like-minded, ideologically similar national figures to come in and help you out. Like, people still early in these cycles were like, I wonder who Obama is going to endorse. It's like, well, I hope he endorses a progressive, but you know that he's probably not going to do that. But you did have Bernie Sanders, and so he went around rallying for people like Brent Welder and a number of other candidates. You have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as well. And after some of these other primaries and after November, you're going to have a lot more. You might have Ben Jealous, you might have Andrew Gillum. These people who are going to be commanding media attention are going to be able to help out in future cycles similar sorts of candidates. We take that element of the machine away and use it against them.
And if you're watching tonight, and if you just heard what I said, you are. If Andrew Gillum does what he now must do, I mean, great win. Now you got to go beat kooky Ron DeSantis in his wall with his kids. Then you're the incredibly young, pull up your bootstraps governor of Florida. And get ready to know Andrew Gillum's name for the rest of his life, right? Because he will. He'll be a governor, he'll be a senator. He may skip becoming a senator and go right from being governor to running for president of the United States. But you got to beat Ron DeSantis first, and then most importantly, though, what you got to do if he is able to win in November, when he gets to Tallahassee, then whether it's January or December, whenever they bring in the new governor, you have to govern. And you have to govern effectively and without corruption, which is a problem always in Florida.
And in his case, uncorrupted, doesn't take corporate PAC money, and has already shown that he can govern.
There's no harder job in America than being mayor of a city.
And I think people criticize us very often. Obviously, we come from a particular perspective. We're progressives in particular races. We might be biased. Like here, we're talking about we like Andrew Gillum, we don't like Ron DeSantis. But I think in this particular race, we should be more fair. We should help out Ron DeSantis. His goal is to let everyone know that he loves Donald Trump, is super tight with Donald Trump. I think we should spend the next couple months helping him to spread that message.
Well, by the way, so Broward. There's now 500, and they're nearly all reported, 12 precincts out in Broward, and he beat Gwen Graham. He beat Levine by 18,000 votes. He beat Gwen Graham by 34,000 votes in Broward County.
Giant
he is
difference.
Ahead by 38,000 votes.
If you've been watching this live throughout the night, Ben made a great point about how important Broward County was going to be. That's why I think we do a pretty decent job on these election nights, giving you the context that you need. And it turns out that was probably decisive in this race. Last couple of things here. Look, now with the Gillum victory, not only do you have all the positive things that I mentioned before, but you also have momentum. How many primary nights in a row is there going to be headlines all over the country? Another progressive wins, another progressive wins. And this is a big one. This is for the governor's race in Florida. He took on a huge establishment candidate. He had no chance when he began, or at least conventional wisdom said he had no chance. And now people might start to, like famously, in Princess Bride, that word might not mean what you think it means, right? So you keep telling us it's impossible, but somehow we keep on winning.
Yeah.
So, and I think that momentum is gonna start to seep in even to the thick-headed mainstream media in Washington. Where in the beginning, they're like, that's so funny, our revolution is not winning enough. So, wait a minute, they won again, and then just Democrats won, and then Ocasio-Cortez won, and Ben Jealous won, and now here comes Gillum, and
Can I read some polls from Florida just before we celebrate his victory? So there was a poll July 23rd to 25th, so a month ago, Mason-Dixon poll that had Graham at 27, Levine at 18, Green, who we haven't even mentioned, who clearly came in fourth, at 12, and Gillum at 10. Then,
how long ago was that?
1 month. Then Survey USA, August 10th through the 13th, 2 weeks ago, poll that ended 15 days ago. Graham 22, Levine 22, Green 16, Gillum 11 in fourth place. Florida Atlantic poll, 816 to 820. The poll ended 8 days ago. Graham 29, Levine 17, Green 11, Gillum 11. So he's tied for third, but still at 11 points, 18 points behind her. Finally, a Gravis marketing poll from 821 to 825, a poll that ended 3 days ago. Graham 26, Levine 18, Green 19, Gillum 16, still in fourth place, 10 points behind. All polls indicating, and she had a 7.2% average of those polls, and clearly everybody at the end of this race coming, suggesting also perhaps that the visit there in the last 3 or 4 days from Bernie Sanders made a rather significant difference.
Yeah, I want a Politico write that article. So, but listen, guys, I want to say one other thing that's really, really important about that. One of our theses for progressives was we can get unlikely voters to show up. So a lot of these polls poll likely voters. So yes, he was behind. Yes, he ran an amazing campaign. Yes, Bernie Sanders, all other progressive groups made a big difference. But also, the polling isn't accurate because they're polling the wrong people. I'm not one of those guys. Oh, polling, don't trust them. No, you can. They're just using the wrong data set. If you've got a real progressive in the race, a populist in the race, who's going to bring in people that wouldn't normally otherwise vote, and this is an excellent case of it. Now, even more importantly, that's why we think progressives have a better chance of winning general elections, because they're going to get those same people who don't normally vote to show up to vote. Yeah. So now, because Andrew Gillum won, we get to test that theory in a massively important race like the Florida governor's race. And so if Andrew Gillum beats DeSantis, it will shock Washington for the second time. Yeah. And it'll make it much, much harder for those guys who are so skeptical and dismissive of progressives to say that we can't win when we just won. So tonight was a giant night, and apparently resistance is not futile. So don't believe the hype. Here comes progressives all over the country.